So just to give you all a brief introduction, my name is Cristian Flores. I'm the advising coordinator with Project Upgrads. Joining me today, I have Julie Steers, who is a senior program coordinator here at the Grad Study Center. Julie, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell folks a little bit about what you do.
Hi, everyone. Yes, as Cristian mentioned, I'm the Senior Program Coordinator at the Grad Studies Center. So we're housed in the Office of Graduate Studies. So really my position focuses on giving services to grad students here at Cal State Fullerton. We focus on, things that our current students need and running our Grad Studies Center. So happy to be here with you all today.
Thank you. And so here at this workshop, part of our focus is going to be talking about the application, the Cal State Apply application, which is essentially the universal application that the CSU system uses for undergrad and graduate applications. It is one of the steps necessary in order to be admitted to grad school. I'll also be answering any questions you might have and going step by step in the application and kind of showing you kind of what to look for all programs, as well as answering any questions you might have. Let me go ahead and switch my view. Let's see. There we go, that should fix it. So again, this is Cal State Apply. One thing I do encourage you all is to follow our Instagram. We do post updates on there, as well as we do have our link tree on there, which links you to my calendar, so you can set up one-on-one appointments. One thing I do want to stress is if maybe, for example, you get stuck along the way of, in your application, or you have questions about any programs you're interested in, please do set up an appointment with me. And also register for our other workshops. So again, this is just one of the 3 workshops we offer. Grad School 101 is kind of the introduction to applying to grad school. Many of you might have already attended a workshop for Grad School 101, and this is kind of the next step. We also have a financial aid workshop. So if there are topics relative to financial aid that we don't cover here, I do encourage you all to register for that workshop also. That workshop will be covering in-depth the FAFSA application, as well as scholarships, funding, and all that sort of good stuff. And kind of to give you a breakdown of what we'll be covering, what I'll be covering today, it's essentially apply to grad school here at Cal State Fullerton, and essentially, how to apply to the university, how to apply to your program, because those for some programs are 2 different steps. Application materials, speaking to an advisor, what the application cycle looks like, what happens after you apply, which includes accessing your portal and any important contact information here on campus. This is kind of a brief breakdown. This is, again, just the tip of the iceberg. But to give you all some overview, which some of you might be familiar with this information, some of you might not, the CSU is the largest 4-year university system in the US. We are comprised of 23 campuses, including 56,000 faculty, nearly 500,000 students. The system itself was formed formally in the 1960s, and it was basically aimed at providing a high quality education to California's ever-growing middle class. And essentially, it was aimed at creating teachers. That's essentially what the mission of the CSU was back in the 1960s. Just to kind of give you some brief overview. To kind of go into depth, we do serve collectively across all 23 campuses, over 50,000 grad students at any one of the 23 CSUs. So across the 23 CSUs, we have over 50,000 students. And we do have about 258,000 grad programs, with more being introduced in the coming years. Just to kind of give you a fun fact, over 1/3 of all graduate degrees are awarded from a CSU campus here in the state of California. So that's a pretty amazing fun fact. So as far as applying to grad school goes, there is a 2-step admissions process. The first one of those being having CSU eligibility. The second would be meeting the program standards, but the first one of those is kind of asking yourself, am I CSU eligible? And so the first one I want to, it's kind of important to ask yourself, how do you determine CSU eligibility? So, and how does that work? Basically, you start off through the CalState Apply application. When you are submitting through the CalState Apply application, generally you're going to be submitting your unofficial transcripts, language scores if necessary, and submit any other documentation on there that they're going to be asking. But you're really going to have to ask yourself again, am I CSU eligible? And so in order to be CSU eligible, you do have to have completed a four-year degree. So if you say, for example, you are going to be completing your degree this academic year, then you are CSU eligible in order to, so you can start applying during the year that you're expected to graduate. So for example, you're expected to graduate in the fall or in the spring. In some cases, they will let you apply if you're graduating in the summer, just depending on the program. So that would be acceptable for CSU eligibility. CSU eligibility also asks that you have a 2.5 GPA in your graduate degree. In some cases, they only look at your last 60 units, whether that be, or last 60 semester units or 90 quarter units. There are some campuses that are still on the quarter system, like Cal Poly Pomona and Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. And also, say, for example, students who are coming over from UCs. Then, of course, you are also required to meet any other program requirements. So specific programs might establish higher requirements, and that's where we're going to kind of get into, am I meeting the program requirements? So again, just to summarize everything I just said, CSU eligible, bachelor's degree in hand or nearly completed from an accredited college or university, a 2.5 in your bachelor's degree or the last 60 units or last 90 quarter units. Good academic standing. So say, for example, you might have a 2.5 GPA in your bachelor's degree because you have your community college. You were obtaining a 4.0, but your Cal State Fullerton GPA is like a 1.5. And so you have a 2.5, but you're not on good academic standing, then you wouldn't be able to apply to grad school. You would necessarily, if you're completing a graduate or an undergraduate degree at a foreign institution, then you would need to complete a language course, which is what TOEFL is. So it's important to be kind of aware of those requirements. Then, of course, you have to ask yourself, what are the specific requirements for my program? And so the way you can check those are if you check the department website. You can also meet with an advisor from the program or with myself, or you can also check the Cal State Apply program materials section, and I'll show you all how to check that because it does break it down for you. So those are some ways that you can kind of get an overview of what those are, but here just to kind of give you some examples of what those requirements might entail. They might ask you for a separate program application. Some programs, for example, counseling and social work have a separate portal to submit materials. Some programs, for example, might have an application through a separate organization. For example, the communications, for example, if you want to be a speech language pathologist, that program here on campus, they have a completely separate portal as well. That's not through Cal State Fullerton. You might have to, for example, submit extra sets of transcripts, whether those be official or unofficial, to the program directly. In some cases, they might ask you to take certain tests, for example, the GRE, which stands for Graduate Records Examination, or the GMAT, which is for students who are wanting to enter a business program. They might ask you also for letters of recommendation. Some programs will ask you for them. Some, for example, they might say that they're optional. Some programs, they might say, we want 2 letters, but we'll allow for you to request for up to 4 or 3. Some will ask for maybe an essay, for example, a personal statement, a writing sample, or even a statement of purpose. And those are all 3 distinct types of documents. Some, for example, might even ask you for an interview, an audition, or a portfolio, or even a copy of your resume. So it really just depends, and it's important for you all to be aware specifically about what your program is going to be asking you for. One way to ask, or one way to kind of figure out that information, is to see a graduate program advisor. So here at Cal State Fullerton, every single program will have a graduate advisor. And you can meet with them and say, hey, what are the requirements for your program? And they'll be able to give you a breakdown and an overview of exactly what they're going to be looking for. These people, for example, are normally they're faculty in the department or they're professional staff in that department. And their job is solely to help provide students with this type of information and to work with graduate students. One of the reasons it's also really important to meet with them prior to applying is that maybe any given point your application might land on their desk and they typically have the final say in the admissions process. So it might be a good idea to make that connection and network with them, especially because they're going to provide you the proper and correct information for how to get into that program. Because again, they do have that final say. So they know exactly what the program is looking for from students. And let's talk about the application cycle. The application cycle opened up on October 1st, and every single program will have a different deadline. There are some programs, for example, they might have similar deadlines. For example, if you're looking at the social work programs, those deadlines are, I believe, January, around the second week of January. So I know our program, I believe, is January 14th. Some other CSUs may be there, for example, January 15th, 16th, 13th, they're usually around that week. You can find those deadlines on the program website, and you can also find them on Cal State Apply. However, sometimes Cal State Apply might be inaccurate, and I'll explain how that kind of works. For example, the credential programs, they do rolling admissions. So for example, maybe you're interested in the credential program and you submit your application before the first rolling deadline. They'll look at your application and within a few weeks, they'll invite you for an interview. However, they'll accept applications until June 1st. However, the caveat with that is if the program fills up before then you'll have submitted your application, but you might not be guaranteed a spot in the program because it might have already filled up. So that's one important thing to remember, to submit your applications before the rolling deadlines as opposed to the final deadline on Cal State Apply, and to look on the program website for those rolling deadlines. For programs that might offer a rolling deadline, not all programs do, and not many do actually. So what happens after you apply? So kind of skipping ahead a little bit, after you apply, you will be issued, here at least at Cal State Fullerton, a campus-wide ID. Many of you all already have one, and it will always stay the same. So when you reapply as a grad student, you're going to keep the same CWIT. It's not going to change. That is yours forever. If you you will also keep your same CSUF email address. However, if you're applying in a different campus, you'll be issued what would be the equivalent to a CWIT here. For example, at Cal State LA, maybe you're going to be issued what's called a CIN, so a campus ID number. At schools like, for example, Cal State Bakersfield is called a CSUB ID. So you're going to be issued the same kind of equivalent ID number that's going to identify you. And that's, for example, if you need to contact the admissions office for whatever reason to get status of your application, you're going to give them that number. You're not going to give them, your social security. You're not going to give them your phone number. You're not going to give them any of that information. You're going to give them your campus-wide ID or the equivalent number for that respective campus. You're also going to be issued typically a campus email address. Even if you have not been formally admitted to that institution, you'll still be issued an email address, because that's where they're going to be sending any correspondences. Maybe they're going to be asking you for documentation they might need. That's where it should all ideally go. Typically here at Cal State Fullerton, as well as any other institution, you're going to be gaining access to a student portal here. At Cal State Fullerton, we call it the Titan portal. And it is the main hub of communication. Same with any other campus. You're going to be given information, for example, related to your financial aid status, registration status, any deadlines for any documentations you need to submit. Many times, for example, you'll be notified of your admissions, and they generally give you a window of when you need to accept that admission. So you're not automatically enrolled, or you're not automatically matriculated. You have to accept your admission. And you also, many times, depending on what your financial aid package looks like, have to pay the enrollment deposit. So that's something that you have to check on your portal for. And it is your responsibility to be checking that and to keep updated. That's something that I want to stress. A lot of students aren't keeping up to date with their portal, and so they might be offered an admission notice and they never knew about it because they're not checking their emails, they're not checking their portal as well. Or maybe, for example, they're missing a document for financial aid and it's on their portal, but they're not checking their portal actively. So it's really important that you all are on there checking for any documents. Maybe you were selected for verification. Just really important, and that way you can see, well, what document do I need to submit if I was selected for verification, and it'll tell you exactly which one. Here are just some really quick offices that you might want to kind of get information from. So for example, there's the Office of Admissions, which generally they're not going to provide too much information related to your application. Generally, you're probably going to go through the Office of Grad Studies, but the Office of Financial Aid is going to be a really great resource for many of you who might have additional questions about your financial aid package. So I highly recommend that you all take some of these down. And maybe, for example, you don't know who to reach out to, you can also reach out to me and I can help you locate the right office for the question you might have. And so for that, you can reach out to gradadvising@fullerton.edu. And so one thing I want to do now is open up the Cal State Apply application. That way I can kind of walk you all through what that looks like. Let me see. And I know someone asked me that if this is being recorded. Yes, it will be recorded, and I will go ahead and share it with you all once we've edited the video. But in the meantime, let me go ahead and share. So I'm also going to share this link in the chat box. So it's calstate.edu/apply. And there's a couple things that I want to show you all here that are awesome resources. So before I click on apply, so this is where you would select the term you're applying for, but I want to go ahead and select the option that says graduate. Say, for example, you know that you want to go to grad school, but you don't know where you want to apply to. So one tool that I want to show you all is this graduate section here and graduate degree search. Here, for example, maybe you want to get your degree in biology. And this is just an example, and you want to look at all campuses, right? It gives you a list of every single, and here you're going to be narrowing it down by masters, right? So it gives you a list of every single campus within the Cal State system that offers a biology degree. It also gives you the option to click apply now, but generally this is, again, giving that list. Say, for example, you are interested in Cal State Northridge. You click on Northridge and it takes you to their academic programs, and we would click biology, right? And again, this is just as an example. And you can basically get information on getting into the program. So, and then utilize the website at your discretion. If you click on master's programs here, it should give you admissions process and requirements. So again, you should be able to utilize this. So here it tells you the deadline for fall semester, deadline for spring semester, how to apply, what the requirements are. Say maybe, for example, you're interested in the program at Fresno State, right? Master of Science in Biology, and it gives you all the information. We're accepting applications for spring 2023 admission. The deadline is September 30th of 22. But yeah, that's basically how you utilize this, and it's one of my favorite tools. Maybe, for example, you are interested in a degree in counseling. It gives you every single one, and sometimes you have to search a little bit. Maybe counseling, for example, I know we have here the counseling program at Fullerton, which is not listed here. So you have to maybe use different keywords. So counseling, marriage and family therapy. So those are all listed there. So that's one way you can utilize this tool. Now, for example, say you know exactly where you're going to apply, right? You're going to apply for fall of 2023. Many of you might already have an account with Cal State Apply from when you applied as undergrad. Please use the same um, account information. So when you open it up, it'll ask you to import the application from a prior year. You're going to select yes. That way, when you do, it's going to look like this. It's going to look very similar to this. So it's going to ask you for your title, your first or given name. And so say, for example, we're starting here, last name, Doe, display name. This is going to be the username, basically. Email address. One of my recommendations is please do not use a campus name or your email, campus email rather. Say, for example, you're already a student at Fullerton and you want to use your Fullerton email. My recommendation is please do not use it, especially if you plan on attending a different CSU. The reason is typically there is no guarantee for how long your email will be active after you graduate. And if you're wanting to receive updates about your application, especially if you're applying sometime in the spring or fall, there's no guarantee if those emails will come in. So please use your personal email for that. So this is what this looks like on that end. We're going to go to extended profile. So what degree or credential or certificate are you applying for? Here I've selected second bachelor's degree and beyond. Example, master's, teaching credential, certificate, doctoral. I'm selecting graduate, but maybe, for example, many of you might be selecting a teaching credential, right? But again, or maybe you want to look into both. But I'm going to select graduate. Are you applying to return to the CSU campus which you previously attended? So here you're going to select no. This is only for students who already started a master's degree and are looking to basically go back and complete it. Maybe they, for example, dropped out, they stopped attending for a family emergency, and they didn't file a proper leave of absence. This is for those students. So in many of your cases, this does not apply to you. You're going to select no. And again, for military status, select whichever one applies to you. And for international applicant, if you are not an international applicant, you select no. It's going to ask you what your state of residence is, which whenever you regard as your permanent home. For many of you, it'll be California. This includes, for example, if you are a DACA student, you're going to select whichever state is respective to you, but this applies for all of you as well. Then you're going to go and click on my application, and it's going to look like this. It's going to actually ask you to add a program first. So for this application, I'm going to go ahead and kind of go through social work just to kind of give you all an example. And I'm going to select Fullerton social work application. And notice that there are two applications for Fullerton, Fullerton Extension and Fullerton Graduate. The Fullerton Extension is for those who are interested in part-time enrollment in the social work program, and it is a 3-year program. The Fullerton, the traditional graduate, is a 2-year program, and the offsite one is self-funded, so it does not qualify for financial aid. So that's one thing you have to remember to, if you're interested in financial aid, to click on Fullerton Graduate. I had selected another application prior, so that's what's giving me this error message. So it's asking if I want to select a new application. I'm going to click yes and continue submission. Once I've selected that, I'm going to go to my application again, and I'm going to go to personal information and click on the release statement. The release statement is basically going to, it's basically, you give the CSU permission, they're basically saying that everything is going to be correct, accurate, and that you authorize the CSU to collect their information as they need, as they see fit. Sign that at your discretion. And say, for example, you're here. You're going to type first your given name. All that should already be filled out. Do you have any materials under another name? If you've previously been married, or if you have a nickname, then you might want to select yes. Say, for example, you have transcripts that are under your maiden name or your bachelor name. You're going to enter that information here. So someone said, is there financial aid for part-time grad students? I'll explain a little bit about that briefly. The State University grant is for students who are enrolled in 6 or more units. However, students who are in the extended university or extended programs do not qualify. Only students who are attending through the main campus, not through, for example, the social work through extension does not qualify. So do you have any materials under another name? So if you don't, then no, that's completely fine. Do you have a first, middle that you commonly use for other than your legal name? I've heard students say, I go by my middle name, so preferred first name. Then you would click that. What is your legal sex? This is asking, in this case, biology. So select whichever one pertains to you. Do you consider yourself to be, and then it asks you about your sexual orientation, it asks you about your gender identity, and then it asks you about your gender expression here. So it does collect that information as well, despite it only here asking biologically about your sex. You're going to enter your date of birth. So John, we're going to put 01/01/1998. That's going to be John's birthday. It's going to say confirm you're 24 years old. John was born in this case, I'm going to make John be born in Mexico. And this is for the purposes of kind of just giving you some examples. City, he was born in Guadalajara, Jalisco, right? So just to kind of give you all just an example. And then we're going to continue to the next section. Here, we're going to see lives in the United States. For the address, I'm going to put 5151 State University Drive. That's actually the address for Cal State LA. So just so you all kind of know where that's coming from. He lives in Los Angeles. So yes, is this your address? Is this your permanent address? Yes, that is his permanent address. And then continuing on to the next section. So here's going to be asking you for residency and citizenship status, and this might apply to you, this might not. Select the value that best describes your U.S. citizenship. So for John, he has, I'm going to say that he has no citizenship status. He is DACA, just for the purposes of this application, so I can show you all for those who might have any questions regarding this. Do you claim California residency? Yes. Have you lived in California continuously since birth? No. When did your presence stay in California begin? 01/01/20 or 2001. I'm going to use that as kind of the example. Again, this is just an example. Say, for example, he does. Say, for example, he has permanent residency status or green card. Same thing here. Say, for example, permanent issue date. So 01/01/2001. So that's kind of how that would go. For those of you who might have questions about that. If not, then you just simply select the one that is most relevant to you. So if we go back here, maybe you were born in the United States. All the way at the top. And just the toolbar is blocking it. It's United States. You're born in Los Angeles, California, Los Angeles County. All right, so citizenship and residency, U.S. citizen, John 01/01/1998, right? So race and ethnicity, select which one best fits you. Again, we are just kind of using just some examples. So here, let's see. Just to kind of give you all some filler information. In this section, it is very important. If you do not have a social security number, then please do not put one. Please do not put your phone number. Please do not put anything. If you have a green card, your green card number. If you have DACA, please do not put any of that. You can select no, and it'll ask you to acknowledge that you do not have a social security number. If you have one, then please do enter it. But otherwise, put no if you don't have one, if that's your case. What is your first language? Again, select whichever ones pertain to you. Have you ever been, and this is, I really want to go over this when a lot of students, for example, are kind of scared to answer these. Maybe, for example, they've been placed on academic probation. This does not determine whether you do or do not get into a program. So you can answer these as honestly as possible. And I say this from experience. So I've actually been academically disqualified before. I've filled out this application and I've gotten into grad school. So don't feel like this is going to hinder your chances of getting in. And it'll just ask you to give an explanation of, well, what happened. So the same thing here with academically disqualified or disciplined. We're going to put no for all of these just to make it easier. But if you have, then just be very honest about it and just be very transparent and don't feel like it's going to get you in trouble. Teaching or other educational credential information, select your best interest. So here, John's not interested. Are you interested in checking your eligibility for monthly food assistance? Select whichever one you feel you need. And do you have an RN registered nurse license? If you're going to apply to a program, you do need to fill this out, your RN license, because it does require you to have your RN license. John is not, so he's not going to fill that out. Here it's going to ask how you heard about it, counselor advisor, and let's see if there's anything that I'm missing. Okay, there we go. This is what I was missing. So again, if you are missing anything, it will not allow for you to go to the next section. So here it says, were you born before January 2000? Yes. So automatically I would click yes. Total size of household. So here, if you were born before this date, then you're going to select yes. So that automatically makes you a single household for this for the purposes of this application. I want to stress something. A lot of students, they're kind of scared about financial aid and whatnot because they say, my parents make too much money. As a grad student, you are now considered independent. So that's one thing I do want to stress. So your parents' income no longer is a factor. So this is where we're going to put that John makes a year. So this section is now completely filled out. Okay. Again, it's very straightforward. I know some parts might be confusing in how they ask things. This section, the academic history section, might also be a little bit confusing. So I put, for example, I'm going to delete all of these and kind of start from scratch so y'all can kind of see, well, what exactly is going on. Say, for example, you only attended Cal State Fullerton, right? Then you are going to add college or university. Did you obtain or are you planning to obtain a degree from this college or university? Put yes. Degree in progress if you're not completed. What type of degree are you planning on obtaining? So here it would be a Bachelor of Arts. When will you earn that degree? So John is graduating in May of 2023. And what is your major? So he's going to social work. So social services, I believe, is the major that pertains to this. If not, we're going to pretend he's majoring in sociology. What is their minor? He's minoring in, and we'll, again, we're making some of this up as we go. Biochemistry. We're on the semester system. He is getting in-state tuition. When did he start? So say, for example, he's completing his degree in 4 years. So that means he started in the fall of 2019. His last semester would be spring 2023. And I know that this is probably many of you, this is not the same case. So he's giving me an error. You indicated that you are no longer attending this college. Please verify the start and end dates. Oh, here we go. I see where the error is. If you're still attending, you're going to check that box. Say, for example, maybe you attended community college. And so say, for example, you attended Fullerton College. Did you obtain or are you planning to obtain a degree from this college or university? Maybe, for example, you took summer classes, right? And you attended a summer class, say, for example, summer 2020. And you ended, and it was one session, right? That's ideally what you should be putting, something very similar to this, if that's the case. Or maybe, for example, you actually got an associate's degree. Did you obtain a degree? Put yes, degree awarded. What type of degree did you earn? Associate of Arts for transfer. Say, for example, it was awarded May of 2019 because you started in the fall. What was your major? It was sociology. What was the minor? There was no minor. And say, for example, it was 2 years, so you started fall, August of 2017. And completed in the spring, May of 2019. And we can save that. So say, for example, that's all you have, but you would enter every single school that you attended, no matter what, even if it was a semester, even if it was just one summer, even if it was just one class, you have to make sure you enter every single institution. All right, so anything that's beyond high school, you enter it here. Say, for example, standardized tests. The program that John is interested in does not require a GRE or a GMAT, so we are not adding anything here, and it'll check that off. So someone said, what section is this? This is the academic history section. So it'll be where it says academic history, and when you click on that, it'll say colleges attended. It'll ask you to verify to confirm, and then it'll let you start adding colleges or universities.
Oh, mine doesn't pop up. It just does standardized test.
Does it when it says, for example, on extended profile, do you have selected the bachelor's degree or the second bachelor's degree and beyond?
No, I was also going to ask how to get to that because I think I put one of the wrong options.
So we're on the top of the screen, it's going to say John Doe, or it's going to say your name, and you're going to click on extended profile.
Okay. I put it says I put down second bachelor's.
And then let's see.
For returning, I did put yes because I know you said to put no, but
are you returning to this? Did you already start a master's degree?
No.
So then you would click no. So
okay.
even if you're reapplying to Cal State Fullerton, you would click no. So if you're returning to the same campus, that one's specifically for students who, for example, maybe they stopped attending a program and a master's program, and then they, for example, wanted to return maybe 2 or 3 years later.
Okay.
Maybe their leave of absence ran out, or they didn't file a leave of absence, so they have to reapply for admission. In your case, if you're a first-time grad student, you're going to select no.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So when you click on academic history, it should look like this. Again, the colleges attended should be an option there.
Yeah, it's there now. Thank you.
All right, cool, perfect. So here it's going to ask you to add the GPAs, right? Say, for example, these are both undergraduate. Say, for example, you are taking 100 credit hours and your GPA is a 3.25. It'll automatically give you the quality points, or it'll see GPA points on your transcripts, and it should give you a number. And once you enter these two, it'll formulate this. So it should match up. All right. And this is just, again, as an example, save, and then go back to this section, add GPA. This one will also be undergraduate, because even though it's community college, it's still considered undergraduate. Say, for example, you took 60 units at community college and you ended up with a 2.89. Again, it'll automatically calculate this for you, and you click save. If at any point in time you get confused, you can again set up an appointment with me. So credit hours is units, yes. So just to kind of give you all a reminder, credit hours and units are interchangeable. So if you kind of do get confused, just remember that credit hours and units are interchangeable. And then Vanessa, I know that you asked, is it required to take the GRE before applying? I do recommend taking the GRE, and the reason is in many instances, for example, you maybe, for example, don't get the GRE score that you need. It gives you time to retake it. Because the GRE is like the SAT, so you can take it as many times as you need. That's one of my recommendations. And then I see Vanessa has a question.
Yeah, so just going back to that question, for that one, like if it's required, do you have to take it before you apply, or like when are the scores due, or does that depend on the university?
So say, for example, you're looking at maybe for the CalState Apply, you have to submit everything on CalState Apply, then you have to take it when you submit your CalState Apply application. Because they're going to ask those materials pretty soon after, especially if there's like an application deadline.
Okay, thank you.
And then Silali?
If the program says they don't require it, do you still recommend taking it anyways?
In some instances, the program will say it's recommended if you maybe don't meet the GPA requirement, but it's not required. If I'm going to be very honest, if it's not required, I would recommend don't waste your money on taking it. Unless a program specifically says we require the GRE, don't waste your money because it is about $250 to take the GRE. That is just my personal recommendation. If you maybe want to take it now because maybe you want to apply for a PhD program later on and you know the PhD program is going to require it, you can use the same scores that you use now for your PhD program later on, and you might be able to kill essentially two birds in one stone. But if your program does not require for you to take it, I don't recommend you taking it. I don't recommend spending the money to take it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So here's going to say I have reviewed this information. Let's see. And then it should give you that checkbox. So now when you go back to my application, this is all complete. Here it's going to ask for experiences. Let's just say, for example, here we're not going to add any experiences. And I'm going to specifically click that. The social work application doesn't require for you. Many of the graduate programs don't require any experiences. And if they do, they're not going to ask you. They're not going to ask for you to fill them out here anyways, unless explicitly stated. And the way that you're going to know explicitly what the application is going to ask you is, again, going back to this section where it says program materials, and you click on social work. This is a program details. So here it's going to tell you social work supplemental application required. So it's going to say there's a separate application. Application details and additional program information are available on the department website. So if you click on social work, how to apply. So it says first fill out the CalState Apply application, and then step 3, click to apply to the Department of Social Work website. This is that separate application I was talking to you about. Say, for example, maybe you're not looking into social work. Maybe, for example, you're looking at the English program or a different program, right? So we're going to go ahead and go to Fullerton Graduate in English. And it's going to give you that message because we already started one application. And we're going to go back to my application. Again, these are already completed. Now, for example, it's going to give me this information. It's going to say, it's going to let me upload documents here. So for example, personal statement writing, sample unofficial transcripts, and letters of recommendation. For the social work program, that's all going to be here in this separate portal, and you have to create an account. This is where you're going to upload your letters of recommendation, your personal statement, upload your resume, enter every class detail by detail. And this is just for social work, and also counseling is the same way. Other programs, for example, maybe you're looking at communication disorders. It's load. So Fullerton graduate communication. Let me see. All right, here we go. Communicative disorders, right? And again, it's really important for you to read that very last section because it will give you very specific details about specific applications. So now we've selected communicative disorders. And again, this is just to kind of provide you with examples for each application. I'm like, we have over 50 programs, so it'd be hard for me to go through each one. But if there are questions about maybe you have a specific program that you want me to go over, I'm more than happy to do that.
Could you go over the counseling for Cal State LA? Because at first I couldn't find it because it's school psychology, but it's under counseling, and then it has like 4 different options. So like I just wanted to know if we have to specify or you just get in under the counseling program.
All right, give me 1 second. So there are some programs, for example, they'll have a separate application for each concentration, and you do have to select the concentration you're interested in. And so I don't know if that website is down for Cal State Applied. It might be down because, as I said, we're in that peak season. Here we go. So here it tells you apply to both Cal State Apply and SIDCUS. So in order to apply to this program, you do have to apply through SIDCUS as well. And they have their own portal. So this is kind of what I was saying. Some programs will have their own portal. This is for comm disorders. I know you were asking me about counseling program at LA. So here I'm seeing, let me see. Let's go ahead and add it to our cards. And then, for example, we'll go back to my application and we'll select and look through their materials. And again, in the meantime, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
I have a question. It's kind of what you're doing right now. When it states, I guess you're on the homepage for counseling, when it lets you know what are the admissions requirements, it will state what it is. And then you recommend also to check the department or check the website, because there may be additional, let's say, prerequisites, a class that you have to take. Because I know, I don't know if it would state it on the on this Cal Apply website, or you would have to go further and do more research on the program.
So yeah, I do recommend checking the website, because again, as you stated, sometimes it will state specifically the classes that are required to be taken. Sometimes they won't.
Okay.
So I do recommend doing that, because you can cross-reference your TDA to see if you completed those courses.
Yeah, because I just checked for the MPA program for Cal State Fullerton, and it does give like admission requirements, and then it also says additional information needs to be sent to the MPA coordinator. But it doesn't state that you have to also make sure that you take 2 certain classes that are required or to start the program. And if you haven't, then you have to do that before. So, okay.
Let's see. I see that I have questions about, do I know the exact GPA in regard to which program? Also, you are considered independent even if you do not have income. That just means that you have your EFC when you file your FAFSA would be 0. So just to kind of give you a sight that you still, no matter what, are considered independent. For letters of recommendation, yes, each one will be program specific. So say, for example, here, your letters of recommendation are going to be requested in this section. It's going to ask you for 2 letters, but say, for example, you add an additional program to that list of classes here. You have to request a whole different set of requests. So say, for example, new recommender request. It even lets you select the deadline. Say, for example, the application deadline is February 1st, right? Just as an example, you can select that the letter deadline is January 15th. Say, for example, I do that. And so always waive your rights. Just as a side note, always waive your rights. And again, it'll probably send me an email. So that's how you essentially would do it. So my recommendation for how early you should be filing your letters of recommendation requests, I'd say no less than a month. So Brianna, I see that you're asking about CSUF. Which program are you applying for? So MSW, as I stated before, MSW has their own separate portal, which is this one right here. You have to create an account on this portal to submit your questions, your letters of recommendation. This is going to be their portal. Fullerton, the one that I'm on right now. So if you attended Alexis 2 colleges, you would put the name of the district. So typically you'd put the name of the district or the one that you have the most units from.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because in some instances, even though it's like 2 different sites, it's considered like one campus.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Do you recommend sending a separate email to your recommenders? I know that you can also have a conversation with them, but send a separate email. I know that this is sending them a link, and I know you can send a personal notes? And
Absolutely. I would absolutely send a separate email. The reason is, again, asking them for permission in a sense, and also thanking them in advance. A lot of faculty, of course, have busy schedules. So my recommendation is to reach out to them. Hey, my name is, and then state your name. I was in your, and then if it's a faculty member, I was in your so-and-so class in the so-and-so semester. I wanted to reach out because I'm in the process of applying to graduate school, and I wanted to know if you had time to write a letter of recommendation for me. I'm applying for X, Y, and Z program at X, Y, and Z school. And and just basically explain to them, and they might ask you in response, oh, of course, I'd love to. Can I have a copy of your resume or a copy of your statement of purpose or personal statement so I know what to write? Or they might ask you, what would you like for me to write? So just to kind of give you a little bit of an idea of what you can do before you reach out.
okay, thank you.
So do you still need to file for FAFSA even though you graduate this year? So when you file for FAFSA, you file for next year. So say, for example, you're filing for fall of 23 admission. You file FAFSA now for fall of 23. As far as fee waivers, there are no fee waivers for CSU campuses for applications. So for each individual school you apply to, it is $70, regardless of the application. So unfortunately, for undergrads there is, but for grad students there are no fee waivers. So you do have to pay out of pocket. One of my recommendations, this is just a personal recommendation, if you're looking to apply to different campuses, look at when their fees, or look at when their deadlines are for their applications. Sometimes they're far enough spaced out to where you can maybe apply weeks apart and not have to spend $70 for each application if you're applying to more than one school all at once. Maybe, for example, you're looking at applying to like sociology, and sociology at one school is like, for example, March 1st, and then sociology at another campus is March 15th. So you have like a 2-week gap to where you can spend, $70 from one paycheck. That's my personal recommendation, and that's how I've seen other students do it. But if it's not the case, I know many students, for example, they are applying to social work, and social work, all the applications are due the same exact week. Can you ask the same person to give multiple letters of rec if they're not all CSU? So yeah, you can. You just have to make sure that you let them know in advance. First of all, what schools you're applying to, so they can expect the letters from those websites. If those, if that's the case. I've had instances where a student also asks me for a letter of recommendation, and they only ask me for one letter, but I received like 8 requests. So be very specific in how many letters you're going to ask from them. Say, I'm applying to these schools, and list the schools that you're applying to ahead of time. That way you're not bombarding them unexpectedly with all of those letter requests.
I have another question. Do you need to, can we request our transcripts from our university that we received our bachelor's, and then our other like community college transcripts before we click submit for this? Or does it need to be after? Or
yes, you can. But the cool thing is, if you're already a student at Fullerton, you don't have to resend anything. You would just need to go onto your, for example, the portals of the schools and do like a PDF printout, because the programs are going to ask for unofficial, because the school has already received your official from the schools you've already attended. Unless, for example, you took like an elective class that you never submitted transcripts to CSUF for. And that's only if you're attending Cal State Fullerton. If you're attending another CSU, then you would need to send those transcripts over. For example, maybe you're applying to Cal State Northridge. You're going to get the PDF printouts and upload those to your application. But eventually, yes, you will have to request the official. You can do for now the unofficial is typically how you do it.
Okay, but for the Cal State Apply, we have to click submit and then request the transcripts, because if we did not attend Cal State Fullerton for our bachelor's, can we do it prior, or do we have to do it right after we click submit for sending the transcripts?
I'll put it this way: if you submit them prior, it'll take a little while for them to be able to, for example, process them. It can take a few weeks. because the school, we are the largest CSU, so they can be receiving, 10,000 applications at any given time, which means if a student attended 2 to 3 schools, right, they might be receiving 30,000 transcripts, and this is just for grad students. So it might benefit you to submit them just a little bit ahead of time.
Okay, great. Thank you. I just didn't know if it would get lost, or they would, if we have to click submit first and they check the box that once they receive it, they go, oh, they've already applied to the program, and to kind of like double check if they have their transcripts. But okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
So if, like, since I'm gonna graduate in the spring and then I'm submitting my application, do I need to reach out to anyone about sending like transcripts over, like, from the department or to the department?
So are you applying to grad school here at Fullerton? Is that like the only school you're applying to?
Yeah.
So essentially, no, you would just need to make sure that your grades are posted. And that you don't have like any incompletes or any W's that might slow down your graduation. Essentially, the program here at Fullerton, they're going to know, okay, Christian's already a student here. They already have transcripts on file. As long as your other campuses, if you went to community college, have already been submitted. And then Vanessa.
Oh yeah, I put a question in the chat. I don't know if you saw it. It was just asking if the process is the same if we take a gap year.
So I can't guarantee that the process will be the same, because sometimes the application process might change from year to year. I know, for example, from when I applied to grad school to now, the process looks completely different. So I can't guarantee that the process is going to stay the same. This process that you're currently looking at, the Cal State Apply system, has been around for a little less than 5 years. Before it was called CSU Mentor. Now it's Cal State Apply. So I can't guarantee you that it's going to look exactly the same, or that programs might not transition onto Cal State Apply. For example, the MSW program, the way that it's structured to submit a separate application, they might at some point transition to Cal State Apply, but there's no guarantee that they will or won't. So again, I don't want to say that it'll look the same a year from now.
Okay, thank you.
And again, this is your time. So if there are questions, maybe there's a specific program you're applying to and you want to see what the application looks like before you get started, please feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to kind of guide you through that as well.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
If we're unsure of where we even want to go as far as like school-wise or what program, would you recommend just kind of applying everywhere? Because that's kind of what I've already done on my FAFSA. I just kind of thought of a few schools, and I may go back and edit it, but as far, I'm indecisive if I'm going to take some time off or if I'm just going to go into a different program completely. I'm indecisive, but I do want to put my application out there, and I've heard you can't apply for 2 different programs at like the same university. So if it's between counseling and MSW, you can't apply. It has to be one, correct?
Correct. So that is correct. It's almost like, for example, declaring 2 different majors. You can't when you're applying. So my recommendation is look at job postings and see what the degree requirements are for a job posting that you're interested in. And sometimes it'll say very specifically, we're looking for someone with a master's in social work. Or sometimes, for example, they're going to be looking for specific licensures, and maybe 2 different programs are going to offer you the same licensure. So say, for example, the MFT and the MSW programs, they do offer very similar licensures. Same thing with clinical psychology. So it's really important that you ask yourself, well, which experience do I really want to have in grad school? Also, for example, which program maybe is less competitive? So my recommendation is kind of just maybe doing a little bit of research on the job board side and look at job postings and see, well, which one really calls more to me. As far as applying to every single school, it does get expensive, I will say that much. So if you're more than willing to spend the money on the applications, then I would say go for it, just to kind of ensure that you do get a spot in an institution. But if it's not really, if you don't want to spend all that money, kind of hone in on like Also, where do you want to end up? Because my one thing that I was told when I was applying to grad school is go to school where you want to see yourself settling down, because that's where your professional network is going to be. Say, for example, you're interested in social work. Here at Cal State Fullerton, we have 3 different concentrations. We have the gerontology concentration, we have the child welfare, we have the mental health concentration. If those are not 3 concentrations you're interested in, then I wouldn't recommend attending Cal State Fullerton, because that's kind of what they give you to work with. Maybe you want to look into other CSUs to see if they have other concentrations that are more appealing to you. Because you have to remember that's where you're going to be interning in. You're going to have internship opportunities with the social work programs that are going to expose you more into the workforce as far as the field goes. So do that kind of research as well. Say, ask yourself, are these 3 concentrations? Maybe, for example, you want to do instead the counseling program, because it limits you a little bit less as far as a concentration goes.
Okay, and then you had mentioned something to look up, like the job postings, and I don't know if you suggested like a website. I don't know if you
So
meant
I recommend, honestly, especially as you enter grad school, I recommend looking on LinkedIn.
Okay, LinkedIn. Right, perfect.
And
Okay.
then Jessica?
Okay, I have another question. I know you said the deadline for Cal State Apply, I know it reflects 12/1, or is that the deadline that you select the program through Cal State Apply? There is a deadline there that says, for me, for the MPA, it says 12/1. But if I look at the actual, what the MPA, where it says on their department what they're requiring and when to submit the checklist by, and they have, it says 10/25, but the latest 10/31. It's a little confusing on what the actual deadline is. So the deadline to apply to Cal State Apply to the actual university, what deadline is that? Or is each one different depending on your program that you pick?
Did you select for fall of 23, or are you looking at spring of 22?
Spring 2023.
Okay. So
because for mine it says 12/1, but then when I go to the actual website for the MPA, it has in like the tiny fine print, like down below, it says applications will need to be submitted by 10/25, but then it gives another one at the latest October 31st. So I did reach out to the MPA coordinator, and they just said you have time, just submit it as soon as possible. They did not give a definite date for it.
let's see. And when generally the spring admissions get kind of iffy, I'm going to be very honest with you.
Okay, it should be on this page if you scroll right there. So it does say right there, but then if you click on when are the closing dates for applying to this program in the blue blocks down below, go scroll down right there. When are the closing? Click that. Then it gives at approximately October 31st. So my question, I have 2 questions. So Cal State Apply, to apply to the university, to the program, is that a separate deadline than the program, like submitting all your, like the checklist, what they want, like the extra documents they need, the personal statement?
For this program specifically, they probably set the deadline to be on, because I'll give you this, they probably want to ensure that they get as many students as possible. So they put it, and here's just approximately October 25th down below. So again, they might have changed it. And again, this goes back to Vanessa's question about will the application process look the same next year? It varies from year to year. So chances are this information on this website might be outdated.
Okay, so then you recommend me asking what is the actual deadline to submit my documents to the coordinator?
And I would email the MPA admissions at fullerton.edu.
Okay, but for applying to the Cal State Apply, that needs to be done before anything, because it's applying to the university/program, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and the deadline for that, is there an actual deadline for that?
So for example, I'm going to go ahead and
Sorry, I just want to, the timelines are very confusing, and
so say for example, when you add, if say for example, you are looking here, and this is again for fall of
this is for spring, but if you're
but
doing
I'm
an
checking right now
example,
just so you can know where to look.
okay.
And right here, it's taking a little while to load, but in the meantime, I see that someone asked about, for example, if you can choose only mental health and child welfare. Usually they'll let you do interns in either one, so you can kind of understand where you want to go. So as far as your question about the deadlines, look in this section. It'll give you the application deadlines for submission.
And this is for just Cal State Apply, though. It's not for the actual.
Correct. It's not the actual program.
Okay. So there might be two places where you need to look for the deadline.
And that's why I'm saying to reach out to the program directly.
Okay, thank you.
And then I see Angela.
Hello, yeah, I just had a quick question about turning in the unofficial transcript. So I took like 2 courses in a community college, but it shows up in my like the Fullerton unofficial transcript. Do I have to submit both or just the?
You do. You have to submit a separate transcript for every school you've ever attended, even if it's already on your TDA.
Okay, thank you.
And then I'm not sure if there are any other questions. Again, as I was saying before, if there are specific questions maybe that I can't answer, please do reach out specifically to the graduate advisor for that program. That's what they're there for. And again, it might help more so than reaching out to me because again, application requirements do change from year to year. And sometimes I get updated only as soon as you all do in regard to the requirements or even how the application might look like. So I do recommend you reaching out to those programs directly.
I have a question. The 2 MFT programs offered at Cal State Fullerton. How do you find out the MFT programs? How do you find out the competitiveness of the program?
So I will be very honest with you. The MFT program is the most competitive program at Cal State Fullerton. They can receive in any admission cycle up to 1,000 applications.
So for either the psychology department or the counseling.
What was that?
So for either the psychology department or the counseling department.
This is just for the counseling. I know for a fact that they receive anywhere up to 1,000 applications in one cycle. For psychology, they only accept 30 students from what I remember.
Okay, thank you.
And then if there are no other questions, you will be receiving a survey link from me via email.